with it, but I'll put it up here and then maybe I'll hand it off to you and other people can film. And everybody can film. Everybody can film. Everybody can be part of the film. Thank you, everybody, for this. Welcome to the Poets at Muchmore. God, we have so many lovely guests. I can't believe it. Thank you all for coming. I'm so pleased. There's so many great poets in this room. It's insane. I can't even believe it. And there's an open mic, which people can do. It'd be nice. There apparently there's a Lewis Worst reading at Unnameable Book, so poetry heads. If you want to get in a cab, it's going to be good, but this one is going to be super good. For the next hour. How you doing, Sarah? We didn't rehearse, but that doesn't matter. Because we did rehearse. We actually went to Danbro yesterday. It was our last practice session in Danbro. It's been kind of a rough Scorpio season. It's the end of Scorpio season. Today is the last day. So I figured I'd do a talk piece. We're going to improvise a talk piece. Ooh, we're just going to...
Close this curtain.
Yeah, let's close it.
The lights are good.
Yeah, I understand. Let me put on my Allen Ginsberg bag. Oh, yes. The Allen Ginsberg bag is on.
Oh, my God.
Sorry. Somebody has to do it. Bob Rosenthal gave me a copy of his book about Allen Ginsberg, and it talks about his bag, and it's from India. And he talks about it in his poem about when he gets mugged. Right. And they pull him into this candy store, and they take his $10,000 worth of poetry. So that's like considerably less value in these bags. But I do have these free pamphlets. Maybe I'll read a piece from Taking It to the Streets. I mean, really, this is a political action. It has to be. Everything, the debate was last night. The world is on fire. This is insane. How can we even be in New York City like doing what we're doing? I mean, it's great. We have to because we're kind of concentrated and holding it together with our intense mental focus on presence and detail and explicating on that detail and going into more vivid detail. And Mission to Gomorrah. This is for Kevin Killian and James Broughton. These incredible Art Deco style figurine of the moon. So we can each have one. We can each have one. Boom, boom, bap, 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 bap. I like Taylor Mead. I like Taylor Mead. I mean, the greatest meeting I ever saw was the one that I wouldn't pay $10 because it was too expensive for me to see Taylor Mead at the Bowery Poetry Club. And then Taylor moved to Denver because they kicked him out of his rent-controlled apartment. And our apartment costs $1,350 a month, and we gotta live next to our broker. And she supports the trauma. She supports the trauma. She supports the trauma. I want to go on a jazz cruise. With Clark Coolidge. There's no more time. You have to live immediately. Oh, this is a message. I'm not sure from who. Never to part with. And now them. Dawn. Okay. So we're going to get right into it with the readings. Our first guest, we are so honored to have one of my favorite poets. This guy is a legend, part of Public Active Poetry, one of the editors of Mag City, one of the editors of the Poetry Project newsletter. I was just looking through what all the songs add up to the other day, and man, those fucking poems are fast. They're like beyond vivid, you know, like everybody's in high school. This is a fucking serious fucking piece. I mean, I can't do it justice. The basket piece also is fucking, it's one of the best things to read. Well, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, legendary Greg Masters.
It's good. Thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it. We got guests from Stockholm. My friend Johan's all the way from Stockholm. Woo! Yeah. Just for this night. Just directing a play. It's been opening in the spring, maybe, Johan? Thomas Bernhard play, Irondale Theater Company in Brooklyn. Be worth your investigation. Okay. At 20 minutes, 37 seconds. At 20 minutes, 37 seconds into track 1 of a box set reissue of the Miles Davis Quintet recording Freedom Jazz Dance, a previously unissued rehearsal tape, the raspy-voiced band leader instructs drummer Tony Williams to play triplets. Up to this point in the ensemble's working out of the tune, he'd uncharacteristically been lagging, playing as if he were still with Jackie McLean, accompanying with a ring-a-ding-ding on the ride cymbal. But after first working out a bass part for Ron Carter and a few run-throughs, Wayne Shorter certainly had the head down, and Herbie Hancock seemed assured with splashes of chords. Miles instructs his teenaged drummer to lay down a triplet pattern, and after a few attempts, he hits on the pulsating underlying momentum that, still 50 years after recording, transforms the 7-minute master track into a miracle.
Yeah. Woo!
Alphaville Revisited. Wrong world. I've been working on a unified theory to make sense of my uncertain perspective in a universe 14.8 billion years old, to concatenate the vectors. You know, Alonzo hits a ball to the right side, the grinding of stone down in the air shaft, the moment of this pen on paper making thoughts tangible. Fishing line, amazing, right? Tomorrow's headlines today. Poet topples Trump.
Yeah.
Earth renamed Rolling Stones. I used to recant, now I decant. If If I were to think of you, it wouldn't be because I wanted to. Madras. I had Madras. Us at our best. I heard a NASA scientist comment that the Cassini space mission was us at our best. I'd add the pyramids, the music of Bach, Miles Davis, and John Coltrane, the choreography of George Balanchine, the 12 two-reelers Charlie Chaplin made for the Mutual Film Corp in 1916-17, and a video clip shown on TV today of a man shielding his fallen partner with his body amid a crowd scrambling as a domestic terrorist opens fire. What would you add? Audience input. What would you add? Us at our best.
Isidore.
Huh?
Isidore.
Before there was you, I stared at the ceiling. People crowded me. My blood pressure was high, my expectations low. Now I shopped for fish and watched the skies by your side. Dream with commercial. I had a dream with a commercial. Who do I have to pay to get my premium dream check? Every glimpse worth capture in the Catskills. 2 a.m., 5 mg. The swallows build nests in the barn. Keith, the farmer, is saying at a dinner party. Before flying south, the new flock, could be dozens, all line up on the barn roof. Harry James. An untamed girl is standing on a desk. I think we're between classes when this episode of fury unfolds. An adult appears and attempts to restore order. What's your name, he demands of my classmate, Lincoln Junior High School number 4. Harry James, she responds, exacerbating the challenge to all decency and propriety. I remember her long, dark hair. Italian, downtown, and wanting to know more about her as I stood back admiring her stance. She and I both know who Harry James is, I'm thinking. Some big band leader our parents used to listen to. I'm envying her feral grace that likely landed her in detention, but for that moment, at least, reminds us more timid of the natural state we all once inhabited, from which we all were forcibly weaned. Just one more display of resistance I somehow recall 50 plus years later, and salute.
Yeah.
I've got this one last long pulling out. If you'll indulge me.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to be like this. For Leon, Odetta, and Camellia Hartman, my friends, kids, not kids, 30s now. So it's my generation, boomer generation, addressing younger generation. From my couch of significance, I jettison all amusements and distractions, abandon art, its manipulation, a risk not appropriate for my task, a confession for the hour. We baby boomers, born in the middle of the last century, lost the reins of our momentum. Some of us had sense enough to question the paths plotted out for us, but our capabilities measured dim in cacophony. There's so much we didn't do and so much we didn't accomplish. We fade, leaving you youngins with an ailing planet fuming with detritus from bad decisions. Armed with transistor radios and crappy phonograph players, bounded by the Korean War and undeclared Vietnam War, we flourished, a consequence of the nation's pause in commotion. Our proclivities were drawn to the rebels struggling to evade confinement in the village square. Conformity made James Dean cry. Our collective voice was forged from the howls coming through the airwaves. Black voices questioning the man. Why is everybody always picking on me? Or white versions like Elvis and Eddie Cochran, Bill Haley and Buddy Holly, dispensing to the populace an alternative to crew-cut mandatory compliance with the engines of corporate grind, jolting our souls in the same way lightning bolts restored existence to Dr. Frankenstein's creature. Children, let me say, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones provided an antidote to all that was errant, most especially the brutal subjugation of our fundamental inclinations. Then followed, in fine addition, the so-called British invasion, the Kinks, the Who, the Animals, and so many other young bands convinced of their new direction, heralds to uplift us from dull. And Bob Dylan made sense as well, articulating tenderness to beloveds and addressing injustices, defying war, which appealed to me and others wavering in our allegiance. A spark had been kindled amid Boy Scouts and Playboy magazine, the classroom and the synagogue, bike rides and then car rides with friends, toking up while ruminating, readying questions for no one. Us young suburban teenagers who, blessed with privilege and comfort, could propel past definitions and explore possibilities, evolved into creatures past state and even parental control. And there was plenty deserving of ire, doubt, and resistance. The Warren Commission report failed to assuage lingering doubts of many in the multitude, sowing mistrust of officials. As the invigorating beats and Dionysian appeal of rock and roll gained momentum, so too did war in Vietnam. Stark casualty reports each day on the evening news like boxed scores. The government's explanation, verily it was needed to stop the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, talking point the domino effect, failed to convince those capable of thought. In August 1964, reports of enemy fire on U.S. ships in the Gulf of Tonkin prompted the entry of U.S. troops to foreign soil. But testimony from Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense at the time of the provocation, would years later expose to the flustered that the report had been a blatant lie, further eroding confidence in our elected officials for their duplicitous methods and disappointing betrayal of the rule of law. We raised our voices once again, determined to counter the policy sleaze. Spit on, denounced, dismissed, told to leave the country, we carried on, as when poet thug Ed Sanders attempted an exorcism of the Pentagon to expel demons from the source of power. Sick of a sick authority, long hairs and grandmas joined en masse, intent on influencing the arc of the moral universe. We'd had enough of clandestine CIA-led operations in the Congo and Bay of Pigs, assassinations and coups all over the planet to ensure American interests, if you were one profiting from these indecorous activities, plus oft-secret involvement in 81 foreign elections in the 20th century's second half, It'd be revealed by Dov Levin, Prof of Poli-Sci, Hong Kong University. Directed to read such texts as the Dialogues of Socrates, written by Plato, Xenophon, and other Greeks 4 centuries before the arrival of Christ, many of us seekers of truth, pursuing investigation, were trained in critical thinking, chiefly a series of questions for a small group asked to argue and elucidate response underlying hypotheses. Our leanings verged from what our folks had intended. Maynard G. Krebs, Cookie Burns, and Marlon Brando were more appealing role models for their wayward rejection of conventional adherences. Ginsberg's Howl and Kerouac's On the Road presented new vistas, an escape from the trap of straight, acceptable, prescribed values, a particular shot at grace and view askew from what we knew. Toward the end of the decade, we smarty pants of peaceful mind departed from our disparate communities, and as if streams converging into a river, gathered on a farm at Woodstock to hear the new rock geniuses celebrating fervent impulse and ordinary desire. And though the logistics were out of hand, the message carried far beyond our throb perimeter. Our clandestine devotion to these men and women, as well our isolated disagreement with affairs of state, united, innocent of an agenda, young when sensations matter most. It was to be a final joy, as the killings of the decade usurped our sweet velocity. The Kennedys, Martin Luther King, Black Panthers, Hampton and Clark, Kent State, Altamont and Manson, all but extinguished the ideals coalesced as flower power, challenging the validity of peace and love and rock and roll. But though our mass had been thwarted, the clean spirit breathed underground. Lo, the hippie diaspora shrank public visibility. As time moved on, swagger refined, couples hooked up, joined the ranks of the employed, and started serving the demands of the marketplace. Many of us lost some mojo from Nixon's escalation of carnage overseas, followed by the Watergate scandal, encored by a reign of Republicans impervious to people's pleas. Reagan's firing of 11,000 air traffic controllers, Stryker for safer conditions, better benefits, and more pay, decimating membership in unions from then until today. The brothers and sisters nurtured in the age of Aquarius, assimilated into the realm of family normalcy, or sedated their weary selves with drugs, work fetish, or sitcoms. I stayed high through the 80s to retreat from the state's abject cruelty, its refusal to accept a health emergency that seemed just to be affecting homosexuals and Haitians. Its devious shenanigans poured like immoral molasses, selling arms to Iran, subject to an arms embargo, to fund uprising in Nicaragua, prohibited by the Congress. 14 admin officials were indicted, though all convictions were vacated on appeal or pardoned by the departing Prez, George H.W. Bush, Vice Prez when the spurious deal went down. I don't remember the decade much. MTV, different drugs. Oh, the meth, champs in 86. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates ushered in a new age of tech bliss to keep many sated from the abyss. In the new century, errant reports of WMD stockpiled in Iraq, cited as need to invade the cradle of civilization. But this was a deceit perpetrated on a gullible Congress, engorged with a battle boner. Revenge, its only response to the attacks of 9/11, even though Iraq had nothing to do with the terrorist strike. Making the shaky case to the UN Security Council, Secretary of State Colin Powell offered tainted evidence, which, when discredited, would end the Fall Guys' grand aspirations. The UK was complicit too. Tony Blair, agreeable to misinformation provided NSA and GCHQ by Donald Rumsfeld, John Bolton, and other hawks doing Bush biz. So those of us eager for peace took to the streets again, as we had so often in the 60s, to emphasize our support of civil rights and opposition to the blood shed in Vietnam. So we marched for peace, for justice, for protection of the planet, asserting as we could, for the good of all, our conviction that, despite the oppressive fists, it wasn't supposed to be like this. In November 2008, when Obama's victory was announced at 11 p.m., your dad and I poured out onto Avenue A to share in the jubilation with the neighbors assembling to commemorate the achievement and what hope it portended after what seemed like decades of values contrary to those we cherished at Woodstock and still held dear, if unpronounced. Through the decades, whatever the circumstance, no matter the crime, sharing with you has eased my mind. At times when ruled by fools and worse, we circumnavigate to build what's needed to savor delight and all that's right, embedded in the codes to which we ascribe on our journey through the mise-en-scène. Here it be, without fireworks. These words, my effort duly wrought to validate your every thought. Thanks, guys.
Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Yeah!
Holy shit. Great masters, everybody.
That was insane. That was amazing. All right. Have a good night. Thanks for coming out.
Next time.
All right. Yeah, definitely.
What, I'm sorry, what?
So there was wash cap.
What's that?
The Lewis wash cap.
Oh, yeah. There they go. If anybody wants to go see Lewis Wash.
Wow.
Yeah, Ed Sanders, yeah, I can totally see that Ed Sanders kind of investigated, like, that, the journalistic, but that was really, oh my God, that was amazing. Thank you for reading that. Sarah, do you want to come up, or? Sarah? Safaie, my co-host, guys.
Just like, should I have my sax?
No, you don't have to have that.
Holding this mouthpiece. Just in case.
Yeah. How are you? Good. We have more great readers that we're going to have. Do you guys have a preference? Do you who feels like going, or whatever you guys are comfortable with? I don't want to put anybody on the spot or anything. We go. All right, sweet. Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming out. We're going to have an open mic, I think, time allowing. So hopefully we get some people on with that too. But we have Ashley Hefnawy. She's going to read. But first up, you want to introduce your friend, or?
Micaela Foley. Yes. All the way from Rhode Island.
Great poet, great poet.
Amazing poet. I'm so excited that she's here tonight.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Published in the Recluse.
She's like one of my favorite poets of all time.
Yes, definitely.
For real.
She read at the Portal at the Spa. It was fucking killer.
She christened the portal at the spa. She seriously did.
It was awesome.
That was like our first party there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a piece of the portal. Put your portals together. Micaela Foley!
Thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks to Matt and Sarah for organizing this reading and many other readings. And I'm happy to be here. And thanks to Greg Masters, that was a great reading. And yeah, thank you all for being here. Usually when I do a reading, I like to read some things that I've been working on, but also something that I wrote today. So I'll start out with that. And this is what I wrote today. I've had like a really flirty relationship with sobriety recently. And I know that I'm like drinking a spiked seltzer, so, you know, whatever. But I was thinking about it and just how like being sober is also a trip. So this is called Sobriety is Psychedelic, and if I ever think about it, peaceful is the pattern of the frenetic dream, however raw in a hunted season. Stalking the neon-leaved street was an open range. How much swagger could one suckle from the potential energy of changed skin? Cold belly to the flame, utility, either way, it's nice to have a place. Ensconce of ill-fit denim, a home in which to rut oneself. Even on my most nihilistic mornings, I sniffed the milk for rancidity, held onto the shred of it. At night, I took my vitamins angrily, choked a little to make a point. I grew fur, and still they took me to bed, perpetuating the cycle of poison. The egoic double helix of needing to help, to heal it all. The sewage running down the street, feeding the flowers, thickening the outer chowder, the vast pre-mystical underpinnings, reading that now that the moon's hogged, the interstitial underwonder, trafficked, moister than any oyster I cracked open. That's really good. Carefully, when you ask for magic, rolling it over with tongue and tooth, address the luminaries in the custard, spheres of quartz in the fish's eyes. Were these the optics, fields of peripheral flowers, violent by name, protecting oneself with the ambulance of shirt and face, trying to meet in this visual, doing the dance, even kissing, passed on, non-forgotten, held by the salinity of the ocean, held by knowing, vexed by it, the rocks divided into sand, myself into 1,000 tentacles, which writhed with foam, ephemeral, bonded with the cordage of the tide. One hand remained in the oleander, an isthmus of hope, the tunnel, dry land of myopia, palm fronds hung on the trees like hands from a kibbutz of withered corpses. To run at the mammal warm edge of the ocean, to be that up against it, to run into the pulp and blood of it, to be a clot that broke off from it, circulating dangerously. You put your mouth to the spot where water would have been in the car, discussing our mother's similar traumas and collective quest for a silver bullet in the head. We went, ha 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 ha, waiting for terrestrial electricity atop the rarest directional conifer, jewel tone syntactical. I buttoned up my pants. Thank you. So this one is, in the year 2018, I realized that I was gay, and this is just a poem about my near inappropriate love of older women. It's called Eden is an Elder Dyke. All of a sudden, I wanted to fuck. Here was a color you hated, pinkly. Was Tuesday gilded, my hair braided? I lived in another city then and described to you spring. Daffodils swole and collapsed on themselves. Heat rose, plagued us again. Menstruated cycle, a chronic gut infection. Steamed open the void as a spy read a sealed letter. Oh, you wrote me. Shasta with her head thrown back in erotic knowing contentment. At the mountain I knew there was no mistake. Emerging from her headwaters, the mayapple bloomed here, edible. desirable was the unsexy December, and I see you uncap the pen, slick in the way of plastic, a mouthpiece, and the barrel, a neck, and your neck, a swan, and the rhizomorph, countless swans' necks woven with one another. And so what of us fucking? What of our loving? The scent of manzanita was thickening quickly, honey on the tongue of the evening, and chemtrails marred the sky. Respelt, Nazareth was a plain of unknowing. Fish used in divination are later eaten with wine, and we are always churning on the eve of a flat disc, the peak of the sphere. We've been wrong before, eyes sliding around the room. First I saw you, I stared and stared at the impossibly silver lock of hair on your black shirt. In fact, it was a metal tassel on a dark blue polyester micro wool blend sweater. The thirst we can see you. How better, how sweet, to drink of this world, to swallow it all, your body reopening like the carousel in warmer weather, like a body of water riven with electrical current and salt. I shivered, young garlic, oh, antiphonal chant, deciphering, we knelt in heat, proselytes at the Jerusalem of the nether regions, her head thrown back, day pinkly breaking, a summit, thalassic and undulation.
Yeah.
So this last one is a longer piece than I usually write, but I think that I'm excited about it. And it's about, you know, being gay, but also it's about, like, in being gay, I realize that, like, everybody is connected to each other. Like, the ex-girlfriend of my ex-girlfriend is, like, now my girlfriend, so there's that. And then also, like, zooming out larger than just that community is the connections betwixt us all. And, yeah. And also I, like, rode the trains. I don't know if anybody's ever done that, but it's like when you train hop and on a cargo train, and it's pretty fun. My experience was kind of depressing, but I was thinking of, you know, the most like if it would have been cool, and so that's, you know, that's what it was called. That it's called Plural Lovers. We've been thinking a lot about the sauce. The price of spices, salt, the purple of memory, the flavor of intimacy, oranges, cherries, ruby fruit spilled across our laps onto the floor of the train, and details, a tether, a non-metaphoric door, the doors to the train springing shut, rattling, light metallic frame, plastic window, day bright and cold, hitch vibrating like a toy. On the ceiling in the steam room, condensation gathered and burst. Clusters of Neptunian grapes. We lusted after these gaseous figures, whispered, hold us to this heating rock, to industry, gears filling a vacuum with tenderness, ground and frozen into palpable meat. We lay there, sinew, gristle, as the chug of machinery, 0 and 1 ad infinitum, ferried us through a purgatory of profit and loss, from which it was said there is no escape, and yet, open palms met ours, a toast to wetness which overflows, which resists form, which embodies theories like substance, flourish, hungrily, if not to plunder, then to taste at least the spoils of these wild bodies, metabolizing shame like dusk swallowed the horizon, like an alkaloid, with only pulse and a keenness for terrestrial material, dark with expansion, deep in eggy waters. The rod, the wheel, and the magician asexually spawned and pleasured themselves, and as a wound mourns its own healing, the theremin keened unceasing until ultimately ceasing. In a roundabout, we fucked and died, more ourselves, each of the 1,000+ aberrations of time, the wheels churning on the track, fluent, unflagging, sparked a new kind of fire which ate the landscape, which thirsted for reciprocity, which was choking on the blood of its children, which wept at the chemicals, the colonizers, greed that writhed in the bowels like sludge, the stories, patterns of migration in the mono-cropped binary muzzle which could never discourage the million mouths howling at kindred blazes of truth with ancestral recognition. So much to offer at the altar of our taking, opposing this poison known as status quo, named normative, called exclusionary, spread the marginalia over the supremacist text like butter, like jam, and break bread together, asking, what does community look like post-structure? Chop wood, carry water, joyous presence, hot rocks, smoldering to flame. Queerness, was it kindled? Was it love in the in-between, with the in-between, betwixt it all, the smoke and the tender flesh? Queerness, was it riding the trains, observing always, knowing the crew switch in valleys and ranges? Queerness, was it full up, sharing it, fruit, a little chicken, matches, zines, laughter which ripened and joined the atmosphere, formless, inspiring steam from the scrap freight, lying across the tracks, sweat burnt, stenching of ourselves of plural you, singing of things which honey our home. Here we are, hearts bared like a fungus to the sun, not seeking the tunnel's one-eyed promise, only this expanse of wide open sky, catching a ride, no, flying above it, what love looks like in public, the axis at which cellular forms intersected, conditional on one another, spawn respawning infinite fractals. Pour forth, we summoned, astonished at our own reflections again, in the heat, in the fog, in their face, in plural love, not with the projection, but ourselves in the mirror itself, the burnished finish, the ornate gold frame, the chintzy turquoise handle, corrosion, all of it. Love of the mirror, in the mirror reversed, the colonized, racist, sexist, ageist, ableist, classist, anti-spell of the alphabet, itself perverse. Oh, the idea. In lust with the idea of the canyon, a lush diaspora which coexisted with an illustrative valley of sameness, the sauce which filled us with the aroma of perception, such tang, our fathoms, in the sauce it clicked, satisfyingly, like the joint of whichever carcass you poached, coming unhinged, picking apart tenderness like a just dead thing, 1,000 soft, stiff blankets waving, a testament to the blood-stiff sheets of yore, to the sleep dream, the train, the conductor come to clip the tickets to take it out of our hides, how they tied us to the tracks, us all, and called it justice, sickness, a shadow ban, sex workers, trans folks, and addicts, us all, immigrants with needles to exchange at the table, the stable, the manger, the wide open night. Please, siren wailing like a star. Plural children, dead, torn from plural parents, punished for their sin of brownness, of existence, and us all plugged in, eyes propped open to witness dumbly the never-ending reel of fear projected onto us, flickering the communal fire at which we warmed our open palms. Blue light replacing the flame. In a trance we watched, compelled, as the rape hyena cackled and chased the femme rabbit. You be the dad, they say. I'll be the archetypical whole, dolled up in secondary sex characteristics. Look at us cook, go to bed, rise, play house, hit, dry hump the deathless horizon, imitating sickness. The sauce ate itself, licked up every last drop until the tongue of it stirred the pot and there was more and more. In the multiple choice question we chose, feed me a story about a trip which has no end, no neat epilogue, no stop, no station, freights embarking triumphant again, and moving quickly and slowly and becoming still as our backs over and under and beside our lovers, plural lovers, tracing our spines, exchanging our breath, connecting us all in a network, blood vessels, mycelia, the chaotic fractal rhizome of our spirited belonging, pledging allyship to our lovers ourselves, to queerness, freeness. Upon a time began, we went cruising, trawling with nets of story, became enmeshed in schools of soft-bellied fish, brought them home, spiced them well, simmered some sauce, ate of them as they ate of us, relishing it. Oh, the folklore of the body, once colloquial, sense universal. They unto them say, we participated in reciprocal gravity is what curled the hair, red in the cheek. Story morphed the timeless pastimes, so-called American, so-called girls. The rough lyricism of the damp pantheon, how we vibed the gloved, heart-centric genitalia, went looking for and found kinships. We're entwined and entwined our flesh, minds, ourselves in the plumage, the knowing look and familial swagger which set in motion a moment and then a series of moments, yoked as our backs, as cars on a train, and ourselves and iterations of comrades and lovers, passing the tracks in the pitch of night, thick rivulets from a single tree, bleeding from the city of existence through the suburbs of association, out into the expanse one evening. This web, us all, spiders, thin as a whisper, and yet, stronger 5 times over than steel. These locomotives that hold us, how it grew you, warm and golden, each lover, each ellipses, and how you finally came home.
Yeah!
Micaela Foley, everybody, one more time. Wow, what a fucking awesome. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you for
That was
coming
sick.
out.
Hell
Thanks
yeah.
for having me. Yeah, all the way from Providence.
Yeah, came all the way from Providence.
Yeah.
The Amtrak credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's shit, you know.
Car.
Our next reader is actually Hefnawy.
Yes.
So excited.
Great writer.
Favorite writer.
Had a piece in Catapult.
You probably
Excellent.
read her writing. Like,
Yeah.
She's like
Everywhere.
She's prolific.
Yes.
I'm so excited to hear her poems tonight.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and also an excellent DJ.
Oh yeah.
Sweaty by Nature. Check that out.
Yeah.
So let's have a big round of applause for Ashley Hefnawy.
Hello. This is the first time I'm wearing my glasses all day because I left them at home and my partner brought them, and I just feel like I can understand the world so much better. It's been a weird day. I just last month did something that I've tried to do a bunch of times since becoming a writer, like half a lifetime ago, which is write a poem every day for a month. And I didn't actually succeed, but I got through most of it. Jeez, that's a lot for me.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So I'm gonna read a bunch of poems that came from October. The first one is quite different from the rest. So the rest are a little bit more exploring a theme, which you'll sense later. So this one is called Inside Outside. Here's what happens when your internal existence is denied. It's this feeling of conflicting emotions, presenting one way, feeling another. It can feel like you're speaking a language you don't fully grasp. It can look like a mental, physical, emotional breakdown, eventually manifesting in some or multiple sorts of chronic illness. IBS, kidney stones, acid reflux, migraines. And the doctor won't tell you it's from the stress or an inability to handle your anxiety, because nobody ever actually listens when their doctor tells them there's no cure for their chronic pain, that they don't have an answer, but hey, have you tried living a more healthy lifestyle? This is what happens when your external existence is denied, when the color of your skin gets you special treatment, not in the cute way, get you a skin color that can deflect the dirty looks, get you an appearance that fits into the delicate building blocks of a society that was built on the backs of the same people undeserving of your spit sneer. The difference between denying one's internal versus external existence is that one wages war on your insides, we're all schizophrenic until proven otherwise, while the others wage war against your entire existence. Neither is better than the other, but sometimes if you're invalidated just enough, just for being a walking, breathing thing, you might find yourself experiencing the same illnesses, anxieties as the others. Then you're really screwed. The next poem I'm going to read is called Here Lies the Pain Body. So the next few poems I'm reading actually have to do with this notion of the pain body, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically the body that manifests within yourself of pain when you experience trauma or any kind of suffering, and it's this thing that just hooks onto you and doesn't want to leave. It just wants to be fed, and it's fed by suffering and bad things. So this one's called Here Lies the Pain Body. Here's what happens when you go to a funeral that starts at noon. Depending on where you are in the world, you may experience a sunset for the duration of the ceremony. Reds, pinks, greens, blues, a lengthy, stretched out version of a rainbow. The longest sunset I've ever seen lasted 4 hours, nestled between the mountains of Iceland, unable to commit to darkness. And as we drove, I wept inside, as the reds in the sky bled into the reds of my eyelids, one of Pain Body's many homes. Here's what happens when you attend the funeral of a pain body. You probably never thought you'd find yourself here. All the other attendees are memories. It's strange to gather in ceremony for the loss of something that thrives on unhappiness. We thought it was invincible. The thing nobody tells you about the pain body is that it lives in you, on you, like a scarf around your neck, in between your toes, beneath your fingernails. It's that grease that you feel when you scratch your scalp, the baldness of experience for months at a time, coming and going as it pleases. It lays dormant for years and can come to life whenever it chooses. The unfortunate truth, that which you must reckon with, is that you may be here watching the 3-hour sunset, burying the existential pain body, but that doesn't mean it's gone forever. Just as you'll never be gone forever, it wants to be treated like one of the family. It wants to feel loved, it's so needy, but it will never understand that to love it is to bury yourself instead. The next poem is called A Traveling Pain Body, and it's a bit of prose, so it reads kind of quickly. Here's the pain body that lives in one body, traveling at 65 miles per hour in a metal vehicular object that doesn't know that it's approaching another pain body that lives in one body, traveling at 70 miles per hour in a metal vehicular object. So now we have two bodies that know not of each other, that live in the anxiety that comes with navigating a winding concrete path with linear, seemingly arbitrary markings, that live in the anxiety that comes with navigating a metal vehicular object that on the surface just wants to be good at navigating all aspects of life. But what about the pain body? The pain body hasn't been fed in quite some time. It's feeling neglected. On bad days, it feels good, but neither of these bodies have felt bad in quite some time, except for today, when tasked with the responsibility of moving gracefully through intersections, stops and starts, when tasked with navigating a field of other moving bodies, some traveling with their own pain. Pain body just wants to feed. It can be needy in this way and quite strategic. When it chooses to come out, it often causes other bodies to talk about the body it impacts with distance. It They say, it's so unlike her, they would never do something like that. It knows better than to make its presence known before its home buckles into the metal vehicular object. It lays dormant beneath the surface of a heart that beats blood to oxygen to blood, dormant beneath the movement and the thoughts and the action until it is called upon not by the body itself, but by some brief moment of universal harmony, when the radio switches channels on its own, which happens coincidentally in both metal vehicular objects carrying both bodies that don't know their moments of pain, causing a momentary lapse in attention, and that is all it takes to trigger frustration, confusion, the need to return to stasis at the exact moment where both bodies approach a four-way intersection, both blinded momentarily by the needs of their pain, inexplicably craving tenderness, affection, misery all at once. Ask and you shall receive, pain body. Here is the shattered glass, the metal that shape shifts, the bits of brain, body, guts splayed on the concrete path that lays beneath the four-way intersection. Here is the matter, this is what you wanted, take it, wallow in it, hopefully your home hasn't left you for good. Where does the pain body go when it's got no body to live in? I'm going to read one more. I have a few here, but I think I'd rather just read one. This is just called When It Hits. It shows up whenever it wants to. You have no say. Like, let's say you're holding the familiar hand of a gentle doer after spending the day blazing through traffic on a two-wheel vehicle that some would argue to be a death trap, especially here in New York City. You brace yourself every day before hopping on the too-thin seat. Death is always on your mind, but not in that way. More like you think about it more. It's a presence that dwells. You live with that level of awareness that this is all finite. Anyways, that's what that no name used to say whenever things would get off track. You could be living the life, living for the day and for the die, and you might still feel fire quietly bubbling beneath your outer shell, that prickly feeling when your throat starts to close up and you're not sure why. Or what will happen next? Tune in next week, same time, same place, the coffee shop between an ash wood tree and a box, where you might be found crying for no reason, finally experiencing the release we've all been waiting for. You did it. You gave in. Your throat chakra salutes you. Thank you.
Talk to Ashley. Hefnawy, everybody. Yeah, that was fucking awesome. So educate the pain body. You're so right about it. Holy shit.
You shall receive pain body.
I've complicated.
That's like exactly true.
Yeah.
That's so, I mean, oh my god, I just feel like it's all starting to make sense.
Yeah.
It's a good season.
Healing.
Oh, thank you.
Letting
Ashley.
go.
Oh my god.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe we might just go straight into an open mic, if that's cool. Yeah, sounds great. I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Ambient church.
Okay, ambient church. Exactly. Sarah Safaie, everybody. Yes. Sarah's playing a bunch of gigs tomorrow. She's playing at the dance, and at we're gonna do a promo for Sarah live.
Jesuit, that's a good
Jesuit.
It's pretty cool. Like, let me know if you want to come and feel this spot. Yeah. And then the Broadway, same thing. They have really good tacos. They're super cheap tacos, and the taco guy is so nice.
Yeah.
It really is.
Nice guy.
Yeah, it's fun.
He remembers us.
Come drink my tickets. I don't want to.
Yeah. Free drink tickets. That should be in all the ads, I feel like.
Yeah, I should probably just mention.
Free drink tickets if you come see the show. We'll get you drunk. Well, let's have one more round of. Oh yeah, please. Where else?
I was just gonna say and smoke.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
We'll just have one more round of applause for all our readers, Greg Masters, Micaela Foley, Ashley Hefnawy. And we'll just get right into the open mic. So I guess we didn't do a sign-up sheet, but I know Sarah Ossick wants to read.
And Sophie.
She read,
Among others, so yeah.
yeah, so I'll put a sheet, I'll do it right now. But Sarah read in our series last season. This is season 2. We've been here since February. The lineage continues. But they're back, and this is so cool, so they're going to be sharing some new work. So let's have a big round of applause for Sarah Ossick.
Thank you guys. I'm very emotional from that last reading, but all the readers were. Whew. And also, one of my best friends just came in the Yankee hat trying not to be a celebrity, and she's in the back row, and she showed up right on time. So, I don't know. So I wrote 3 poems over the summer. I don't really write quickly, and I'm super proud of them. So I'm going to read them, and then, shameless plug, I have a stupid Instagram. It's called Bad Words. I don't put anything that I'm super serious about, but I'm going to read some of those. They're really quick. Thanks. They all have titles, too, which I never do. Ribbons unraveling in the wind. This one time, I cut the sandwiches in half. There was just enough left to give to the small bird. You are the small bird. You are the mixture of grief and lust. You are the spellbound nation I call to. For that, I thank you. The want to reach the cascading ribbon. When the air gets tired, the walls seem thick. I have fallen. It would be magic in front of me now. But what of the small bird? I hope it goes hungry no more. What it must be like to be a wildflower. The way they stand out, but cluster ever so present. My gift. Turning into something smooth, insecure, nestled in roots that were pulled before dawn. They used to burn women for having that kind of power. Can you imagine? Frail wrists, tied like pale, like glass, like dew, like the wildflower who belongs nowhere, spreading a seed with no other like you. And these are some poems that I hope make you laugh. Bending to tie your shoe in Manhattan. Depending on the street, you have to do a real quick tie or not, or just don't wear shoes with ties, or just don't wear shoes. This one's about the Beatles. Such guts to do. It's Canal Street on the local. Poets say what they want when they want it. I smile when I get what I want. A rumor is spreading saying McCartney and Lennon jerked off in front of each other. Dear Prudence, won't you come out to play? It's beautiful, and so are you. How many lines are permissible until stolen? And this is the last one. I don't know if anyone's ever been in the Fort Lauderdale airport, but we say special layer of hell. That's the title. Alone in an airport, fields and miles away, there was a moment that was very late, summer late, depression late. There's you with the salad, alone with the salad. It is brown. Are salads supposed to be brown? I don't know anymore. Sometimes you have to grow up. Sometimes you have to say no. Moments pass quickly enough that it's just not enough. Let's start again. The airport is bleak, very tough and stiff. Tears feel different on sleeves. Travelers stare and wander. Are salads supposed to be that color? I can't remember anymore. Because in this world, I am alone. The idea that greens could be abundant and rich could touch me. Before the funeral, my sister and I sat on the beach. Running my hands through sand, I sifted out tiny shells and placed them on her exposed thigh. I said, treasures. I am looking for treasures. Let's start over. Good luck, I would say. I don't know anymore. I am alone, disappear. The other world has an abundance of love for you, to give to you.
That's awesome. Sarah also, once again, everybody, thank you for sharing us those. Bad words.
Yeah.
Bad words.
Yeah, 2 S's.
Yeah, for extra sibilance, I guess. So Sophie, did you want to read? Is that cool? Yeah. So Sophie's going to come up and read some poems, everybody. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you. I'll lower this a little bit, or a lot of it. Hi, my name's Sophie. I met Sarah like last week at like this concert or like this show or whatever, and then I just like slid into her DMs and was like, oh my god, let me come read poetry at your thing. And so that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so this is a poem that doesn't have a title at the moment, but it starts with a quote from Margaret Atwood, which says, male fantasies, is everything run by male fantasies? Up on a pedestal or down on your knees, it's all a male fantasy. Oh, that's okay. Now this part is me. Do I exist without the ever-present voyeur? The eyes of God are watching you through the hole in the screen. The stream of consciousness runneth over with the weight of his load. Smack right in the eye. Sick warmth on your forehead like a warm compress. Like something to calm you or cool you on a feverish night. What if I could hit you with my insides? Puke up a remedy for what ails you? Douse you with my holy water? The liquidity of my love should be enough to sustain even the thirstiest amongst us. The wanderer in the desert. 40 nights I'll water him. 40 days I'll wait for him. Not sure why my river will eventually dry up, but soon I'll be the cracked riverbed. Observe the wavy air. Observe the reverberation of my heat. Slip your sweet finger into the cellar of my skin while we still have time, my love. Soon all will be impudence and the occasional cordial nod. No power have we who are watched, who watch ourselves, with the ever-present eye of the partner, the lover, the scorner, the creamer. But oh, how I long for your telescope to turn towards me, finding me always in the tenderest of moments. So that's that poem. We're just going to do another little one that I've never read in front of people before, but I read it to my mirror a couple times. So hopefully it'll turn out good. Gotta find it, sorry. Okay. Open the window. The room smells like Connecticut, some kind of grass. The earth sticks its tongue down my throat. We snort pollen through rolled dollar bills as if we can replace the bees we've complicitly killed. Light rain starts. Soft drive, distant sirens, planes roar, mile high back to JFK from wherever. An ironclad reminder that the world turns and seatbacks must be returned to their original positions. High-tech life, communication, we're touching but just barely. How easy to run now down the avenue to that room on the 3rd floor. Broken buzzer, I'll bang on your door. And that's it.
That was awesome, thank you. Sophie, everybody. Wow, so you guys met just like this. Thank you so much for coming out. That's great. Holy shit. I feel like Scorpio's just kicked my ass. I've been kind of nervous the whole time. This microphone just stopped. So try this one. Much louder. Whoops, sorry. Julia, did you want to read or? Yeah. Cool. Julia just had a book come out. Julia Knobloch, everybody.
Hi everyone. I was going to read a short poem about my mother, but 2 of the poems that were read tonight.
Sorry.
No worries. That's better. The 2 of the poems that were read tonight made me choose a longer poem because it's all about millennials and baby boomers. But what about Generation X, right? So. It's Generation X talking to her millennial ex-lover. It's very new and it's very prosy, but I think it's a cool form to test it out. I'm not decided on the title yet. It's either thoughts while sitting in Washington Square Park or in the biblical sense. You guys tell me later. Now that summer is over, and you don't want to sleep with me anymore, I finally lost a few pounds I wanted to lose before the summer, before you undressed me on that humid thunderstorm night in July, probably the hottest night of the summer, when it wasn't clear whether God was celebrating or raging. You said that maybe Hashem wasn't happy, and I, who had been waiting to see your face again, your sparse chest hair framed by an adobe-colored v-neck, knowing that soon I would know you in the biblical sense, I laughed and said, oh no, Hashem is happy, when it should have given me pause that the rainfall was apocalyptic and it was too dark for even a rainbow. After our fight, the day after your birthday, you wrote me you had been thinking a lot about our connection over the past weeks, months, and years, and I have done the same. I have thought a lot about the Shabbat lunch from February where we first met, you in a red t-shirt and a scarf loosely wrapped around your neck, looking like a proud, tight-lipped Zionist. You friended me on Facebook a couple days later and invited me to a dinner, and although I had been waiting for you to be in touch, I declined to go with a half-hearted excuse that was only half a lie, because I worried I might fall in love with you and that there were too many years between us. I have thought of that evening at the startup Talmud class when I felt your glance at me, again this earnest, guarded glance, warm and curious, and that I noticed again at the retreat at the Hudson, when you were stretched out on the floor and I looked at you when I walked out of the room. And that I noticed yet again a week after that humid thunderstorm night, when you made a vague attempt to caress my cheek, which I took for shyness then, but now for regret and defeat. That night I noticed for the first time that your eyes are both green and amber. Funny, right? How I always remembered the intensity of your glance and not the color of your eyes. Looking back, there was something hesitant in your behavior even on that humid thunderstorm night, almost imperceptible, yet there, yet faint enough to be almost washed away with the rain and desire. And maybe it was for this undefined hesitant something, not for the few pounds I had not yet lost, that I felt as undesirable as I have never felt before, full of desire for you, desire for what was undesired, inhibited, age inappropriate, and angry about it, angry at you, at my body, at our mothers, who are only 5 years apart. I have thought about the one exception in early August when I felt your body and your soul, when you asked, is this good? And it was good. Where was the last time I saw you, you asked, when we met up in the spring, before before the summer, when we were still just friends, and that was good too. We both smiled and said, Washington Square. It was your birthday, and I had an interview the next day, and you had invited me to come hang out on a humid late August day in Washington Square Park. And the next day, the day after your birthday, you texted me with energy right before the interview. And if a psychic would have told us we'd be yelling at one another on 6th Avenue exactly 1 year later, we would have not believed it. Near the Garibaldi statue, we hugged goodbye, our hands running down each other's arm, our fingers just so delaying the separation. And I have been thinking a lot about the look on your face that day. Now, my tan has faded, and the last time I saw you, it was in front of the Brooklyn Public Library, looming against the black sky, and instead of hugging me, you stopped halfway and began to give me a blessing, of which I only understood may you be before you turned around. As I watched your blue kippah disappear into the crowd, I thought of our intentions, sincerely discussed over the previous weeks, to remain friends, to become even better friends than before, someday. And I thought of how you once said that you don't relate to the idea of embodying salvation, of creating salvation together, and I might have understood what you meant then. Then again, I believe this is in fact something people can do. Maybe it is the only thing we can do, save one another. What else are lovers doing? What else is love, if not salvation? Thank you.
Julia Knobloch has a new book. Buy it. They have it at in the bookstore by Columbia University. I saw it there. Does anybody else want to read? Anybody want to talk? You want to lecture, maybe briefly, about like something you're an expert on, or any? I mean, Iran. They're protesting Iran because of gas price hikes.
300%.
300%. Where else? They're protesting. They just deposed the president of Bolivia right in front of us. Protesting in Chile, Hong Kong. Is that right? So we're going to wrap things up, I guess. Sarah is going to come up. Thank you all. Thanks once again to our readers. Thanks to everybody at the open house. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks much, Greg Masters has got his books for sale. I'm so sorry about that. At a discount. Get these books, definitely. The poetry book and the new book of stories, You Among the Coordinates. And
Which is awesome.
Yes, definitely. Get them both. They're both masterpieces. Definitely. Everybody should have them. And there they are. At a discount. So. I've got little pamphlets over there. They're free if anybody wants those. And Micaela show got canceled. I didn't even know that was possible.
Officially, right?
I mean, I could do it. All I have to do is call. I still make it. I just don't know. It's kind of a blow to me. Let me reach into the Allen Ginsberg bag. And let's see what we got going on here.
preacher brother. I can join the beach. Do it, just do it, just do it, just do it. Whatever it is. Make phone calls. I mean, talk about it with your friends. Go to the Queens Public Library. Make your own pair of plants. Fly them into the bloody occupy your own life. Thank you. Thanks to the readers. Thanks to the poets.